Before we get into this awesome DM roundtable discussion, I want to quickly talk about an upcoming Kickstarter. So here you go. Charge your particle cannons, prime your plasma engines, and prepare your synaptic relays for the DND5e science fiction conversion you've been waiting for. Because Penny Dragon Games have just launched Waystar, and you can get a print copy of the adventure book for free if you back it right now. Waystar is a new tabletop RPG based on familiar 5e rules, so you can hit the upper decks running. The Kickstarter includes a core rulebook for players and GMs, a creature codex with 100 plus monsters and more planned, and a galactic setting with everything you need to get your game off the planet. The best part, if you back a physical tier in the first 72 hours, you'll receive a free PDF and print copy of Steal the Stars. Steal the Stars is a space heist adventure that pits players against the dark forces of Shiv Space, a remote star system overtaken by a centuries-old penal colony. Players must steal the stars, ancient artifacts with untold power, before the nefarious gangs of Shiv Space can get their dirty paws, claws, and tentacles on them. Otherwise, the galaxy and everything in it will be purged with cosmic flame. And we haven't even gotten to the fabric star maps, space battle card decks, galactic dice sets, or Space Monkey plushie. You heard that right. Wrench the Space Monkey is coming in hot. This Kickstarter provides everything you need to run a fast-paced, high-octane, ridiculously fun space adventure. And with comics, novels, and more content than you can shake a shadow saber at in the works, you'll never run out of source material to inspire your games. But let's face it, no one can inspire your games more than you and your players. So back Waystar now and turn an alien fleet into a flock of seagulls with a probability torpedo. Hack away Star Control module and jump to another star system without paying the toll. Or blow up a few planets, causing a great disturbance in the cosmic magical energy field, you despicable villain. There's no such thing as going too far with Waystar. A brief message from our space lords. Penny Dragon Games cannot be held responsible for the galactic guard pursuing you when you have indeed gone too far. Please do not pledge if you're a celestial being with an appetite for entire planets, an advanced artificial intelligence bent on galactic domination, or an extraterrestrial supervillain eager to wipe out half of all life in the universe. No space monkeys were harmed in the making of this promotion. Back Waystar now. Welcome to Master the Game RPG. I am Juce, and tonight we are going to be talking about Lycanthropy. I will let everyone around the table introduce themselves, their channel, and a little bit about themselves if they would like to. And then we will get right into the first question. We will start with Dicely D&D.
Well, hello there, everybody. My name is Denny Dicely. I run the Dicely D&D Twitch and YouTube channel, as well as the Play Dicely YouTube channel and Actual Play. I'm the game master for that one.
Hi, my name is Fred Wheeler, and I run the How to D&D YouTube channel. I talk about RPGs, Dungeons & Dragons, and yes, I am on YouTube and other places. You can find me everywhere.
My name is Nicholas. I go by Rook Zero. I run the Rook Zero YouTube channel. I am a freelance illustrator, and I do everything fantasy and D&D. So, yeah, that's me.
All right, and obviously, you guys know I am Juce from Master the Game RPG, and we talk about a variety of tabletop RPGs. With that, the first question I would like to talk about tonight is how do you rule remove curse and lycanthropy? If werewolves are a theme for the campaign, does this change how you handle it? And do you remove the spell or just restrict the capabilities? But before I send it to anybody else, I also want to mention what the Monster Manual says on page 206 of the original Monster Manual. I don't know what it is in Monsters of the Multiverse or any of the new stuff, but in that one, they state that a remove curse spell will work if they are just like cursed from being bitten or whatever. But it also states that if they are natural born werewolves or lycans, that it's going to take something more powerful than a remove curse spell. So like a wish spell, for example. So with that, maybe you run it by the book, maybe you run it by something else, but let's start with Fred. How would you handle this at your table?
Okay, so I've run quite a lot of, I ran a campaign that was very much about werewolves and lycanthropes. There was a whole nation. The werewolf nation was warring against the elves, and because a lot of the werewolves in that particular campaign were born that way. They weren't turned. So things like remove curse weren't going to work. And I had a character who was playing a shifter as well from 4E. So remove curse it wouldn't be appropriate in that situation. I didn't remove or take, and I don't think I've ever done so, even when I ran the Curse of Strahd and we had werewolves there. I never actually removed the spell remove curse from the game, but I did also make it clear that there were things that you could remove curse with and things you couldn't remove curse with. It kind of just depended on the situation for me. And so I've often allowed, if the creature that is a lycanthrope has been turned, then I will allow the remove curse spell to work. There have been times, though, that I have stipulated that they needed to go and seek out a wolfbane flower or some sort of component to make up a concoction. I don't do that a lot. I find that some players are in for that and they understand, and others are like, don't understand why remove curse can't just work whenever. And so I'm willing to sort of bend a little bit particularly for new players. For experienced players, no mercy. Okay, suck it up. That's sort of my approach, I guess. But then again, I've been playing with my group of people for 8 years, and so I can get away with that. Whereas new players in this current climate, I understand, online, they don't like something, they'll just go away and find another dungeon master. But I've been hearing a lot of that lately. But for me, I think my biggest problem when people wind up with a lycanthrope condition or wind up as a werewolf is they don't want to use the remove curse spell to remove it, even if they could use it, because they want to be a werewolf. That has been my biggest problem. It was the biggest problem when I was running the campaign around that and the Curse of Strahd, and they're like always trying to sort of figure out if they can game it because the benefits of being a werewolf are so like awesome, and I'm like trying to lead them down the garden path until something bad goes wrong, which of course has happened to me more than a few times, where the party have just about been TPK'd by one of their individuals who was a werewolf with about 8 wolves following them. So I find that it's the players are not really that invested in removing that once they get it. If anything, they're like, yes, I want to be I want to be a vampire. Make me a vampire. Make me a werewolf. Yeah, so that's how I've had to deal with it.
So I do want to follow up real quick because you mentioned the player side, but what about a player doing remove curse on your monster or your big bad werewolf? Maybe you've set up a boss fight that's a werewolf. Do you just let remove curse happen? Say they've got Wolfsbane.
Well, it depends. If I've just sort of decided that it requires like Wolfsbane flower to remove that infliction, then now I'd go with that. But sometimes I've gone with Wolfsbane or remove curse. I haven't sort of been locked in place into how I would do that. And if I am allowing remove curse, I'm kind of remove curse isn't a spell you necessarily get straight away, so you need to wait a little bit. So, but I mean, it's not that high level spell either. So I've played it in many different ways. I've never really been fixed in place. It depends on the story, depends on my mood, depends on the players. It depends on a lot. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for answering that. Nicholas, let's go to you next.
Sure. I think the thing you really have to talk about when you're talking about lycanthropy or just being a were creature, part of that is the curse itself. And I think, like with what Fred was talking about, if the players want to be cursed, which is something that I have also run into many times, it definitely feels like having a spell that just removes it completely can be kind of lackluster. So I think definitely if it's not something they want, then and they're not interested in that like curse kind of interaction, and they're just like, oh, I have an ailment, let's get rid of it, I'm fine with remove curse being like, yeah, you have the spell prepared, or you find somebody that has it prepared, or you go to a temple to do that. It's fine. The status element is fixed and it's done. But more often than not, I find people that do want to interact with it in a more complex way, in which case I've done things like finding Wolfsbane is a really cool story hook. You have 30 days to find the cure for this curse. Or even if you have the spell, it's like, great, you're going to have to find something to enhance it, because this is a really powerful curse. And I think looking at curses as more than just a status ailment, but something that has to be overcome, whether it's through improving your own magic, finding higher level spells, finding higher level people to help you do that, I think can be really powerful for telling the story. And so just like with what Fred said, like, it really has to help and augment the story and make it better. So like, if it improves the story, that's the direction you should go with it. And yeah, I think for my money, just having the spell and being like, oh, it's done, even on monsters, like, there should be a role in there. Like, whether or not you're just having an off day, you didn't quite understand what the curse was, or finding a way to interconnect it to the story, I think would always improve the interactions with the curses. And that goes for items, spells, or lycanthropy. I think those are all great.
Dicely D&D.
All right. As far as like running this sort of thing, I probably default to the monster manual method. It just seems pretty straightforward. You know, you have your kind of two classifications of werewolf. It's like, sometimes you can remove curse, sometimes you can't. And I mean, that kind of makes sense. I might even take it like a step further if I'm so inclined to, or it's more of a werewolf themed campaign, you know, like maybe if the party gets into a fight with some werewolves or lycanthropes or some kind, like, I believe it's usually you do like a saving throw to see if you have contracted it, right? I just get them to make that saving throw every time and never actually tell them if they've contracted it. So that way when the fight's done, it's like, did I get it or did I not? And now if they do have it, there's like a window of time where remove curse will get rid of it. But if by that next full moon they go into that transformation, perhaps that window's gone. Now you're going to have to do some sort of quest, like that classic Wolfsbane situation, because the curse is kind of compounded too much, and it's like within the depths of your blood, so to say. If I were to do like a werewolf heavy campaign, I would kind of leave it up to the players, you know, like, if you're going to play a cleric or a paladin, it's like, you kind of want that easy mode clearly. You'll get that remove curse. So I'm not going to say like I'm going to take that away from you, because if you want to play that class, it's going to be pretty good in this setting. But that being said, you know, warlocks and wizards also get remove curse. So there's plenty of lore things you could do in a setting like that. Let's create an example here. Say a lycanthrope based plague has, for some reason, gone through the religious system of this setting. So like all the clerics, all the paladins, they're afflicted with this lycanthropy plague. And so the people who are more likely to be able to remove curses, they're basically off the table because they're all afflicted. That leaves like some wizards, maybe warlocks if you decide to have them as NPCs in your campaign. Maybe they're like, it's an odd situation where a wizard might be considered a healer, or warlocks are out there extorting the populace to be like, we can get rid of this curse on you. I think this idea of going heavy into lycanthropy would make a great setting. But I don't feel like I would ever remove the remove curse spell. If I wanted to limit it, maybe say it'll only work on the bestow curse spell. You know, it's the counter to that, and that's all it is. It won't actually affect lycanthropy. But those are just some of my ideas.
Interesting. So I bring this up because in my Swamplands of Thakos game, it's actually my Patreon game, but we do stream the game. And when we started the campaign, I kind of told them, yeah, you'll probably fight werewolves at some point because of the area and all these things. It never came up at session 0. I wish it kind of did, but it doesn't matter. It's okay. I'm playing all these people I'm pretty much friends with at this point. We've had good conversations. So the players, I think, are level 5 right now. And they've had clues for a while that there's werewolves and wolves probably since level 2 or 3, pretty heavily in a certain town. I have a town, a walled city that, without spoiling it, if you guys want to go check out that campaign, we're only like 7 sessions in. You can go check that out. It's on our Master the Game Streams channel. This walled-in city does like a festival, and there's werewolves nearby and things like that. Anyways, the one player said, hey, we've known there's werewolves. We fought 2 werewolves in this campaign. what if I just cast remove curse in combat on them? Are they just going to then morph into something else? And I'm like, that is a great question. I do not know how I want to handle that, because I know that this story arc is heavily based on werewolves right now. The whole campaign's not just this section, right? Next maybe couple levels. So I posed the question to the D&D community, and like you guys have said, I'm inclined to just want to go by the book, or, do it like maybe get an item, or, whatever. And some of the responses in the D&D groups are fantastic. Same kind of thing. Hey, I use Wolfsbane, or I used this. One of them that I really liked was if they cast remove curse at first level, it might work on a low level werewolf. However, that's not going to work on werewolves who have been it for longer. So now they have to upcast remove curse. So now there's a reason to upcast it. And I really liked that. Something others have said is making it a ritual, so you can't just do it in like a single spell. And let the players know, so they don't feel robbed in combat, that they find this information that other people have tried to do it. Maybe they find a diary of a former cleric who passed away, things like that. And so now they can't just go into combat and go remove curse, So maybe that's a solution. I'm still kind of on the fence how I'm going to handle it personally, but I think those are two options that I'm heavily leaning towards. And I'm actually going to reach out to my players specifically and say, hey, here's some of the situations. What do you think sounds the most fun for you? And let them tell me what they want me to do. Because honestly, it doesn't matter. I will probably say, hey, if we have a boss fight, it might not work right off the bat. Something like that. Or maybe it takes time to work. Like you cast it and maybe it's got 3 rounds or, until it kicks in or something. So I'm playing with that idea a little bit. But I think it's a fun thing to play with, like you were saying. And in my setting, like I said, it's a big factor around this one city. And so that's the thing that it's like, I don't want to just nullify it necessarily. But at the same time, I don't want the players to feel cheated, or at least that player to feel cheated. So, yeah. Anybody have anything else to add to the topic, or?
Yeah, I think the ritual is it's a really smart way to look at it. Like putting a self-imposed timeline of saying like, oh no, this is how it would have to happen. But you're also looking at spells like restoration, lesser restoration, and
yeah,
I think all of those can be used to kind of suppress curses, and I've done that in different games. So even if they wanted to actively use it in combat, it might not have the 100% perfect cure-all instantly, because one, it might not be a willing creature. I don't think feral werewolves want to be touched by clerics to be healed. And so there's probably going to be some kind of DC roll in there. And I think that DC, like you were saying, could definitely be based on the length of time you've had the disease or the curse, I'm sorry, or something to the effect of the more powerful the werewolf is, the higher that DC is going to be, that you can overcome the curse, at least maybe permanently versus temporarily. So yeah, removing curse on someone in combat might work for a handful of rounds, or at least give them their sanity back so you can talk to them before they, shift back. I think those are all really great ideas.
Excellent. I like that too, at changing the difficulty and everything. Go ahead, Fred. You're muted, I think, though.
So I actually, I kind of briefly talked about it, and I had the same sort of thing come up, actually. Because there was a nation of werewolves battling a nation of high elves. And one of the discussion points that came up is, well, if we cast the spell enough times, can we just make all the werewolf nation no longer werewolves anymore? And then hopefully the high elves are happy with that, and then we don't have to worry about this. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to sort of fathom, how does that work? Because I had a player who's playing a shifter, and a shifter is not a werewolf, and it's a race in itself. It's not really a curse. And I was like, well, actually, maybe that's not really how it needs to work, because I was thinking back to Underworld, where you had werewolves that were turned, but then there was one werewolf that was just the original werewolf. And I was thinking, well, what happens if you have a situation where werewolves are breeding amongst themselves and creating new werewolves? Is it really a curse now because the nation of werewolves that I was dealing with, they weren't, I mean, they were feral to a certain degree, but they could be reasoned with and so forth. And I actually, in the end, I think for that situation, I don't know if it'll apply to your situation, but for that situation, I was like, well, actually, no. It probably doesn't make sense. That's the new race that's been created. It's kind of like a shifter race now, even though they're mostly werewolf, and they do have some control over themselves, and they are not really dependent on the moon to rise, to change. They can change when they want to, because that's how the adventure was sort of laid out. So I was like, well, no, probably no, you can't do it that way. But if one of them were to bite one of you that weren't a werewolf and you became a werewolf, then you could probably change that. And because then the discussion was like, if we use a spell like that, can we make a shifter into a normal human? And I was like, well, no, because that's them, unless of course you want to kill them and use reincarnate, and then God knows what we'll get. So that was my conundrum, and that's what I sort of eventually went with. I felt like it worked for that situation. I don't know if it will work for every situation. I think the really interesting part of this question, Juce, is not so much can remove curse or can some other thing remove lycanthrope disease or curse, whatever you want to use it as. It's more like, if the characters get it, how do they control their character? Because that's the thing I had the most fun with. Since players are like, yeehaw, like how can I use that against them in the most deplorable way I could possibly think of? Because they are going to use it in the most deplorable way at their end, trying to garner all this power that they have now acquired. And so I used to make, every time they were in a battle and there was blood being spilt, I would make a roll, or I would get them to make a roll. Although, truthfully, that wasn't their roll that counted. I just let them roll the dice, and I was rolling my dice behind the screen. And I'm waiting for them to lose control. I'm like waiting for that number to come up, like when things go completely to pot, and suddenly one of the players' characters loses control and attacks the rest of the party members. And this has happened to me a few times. And then I watch, is like first time, lost control, attacked the party members. Are they going to get rid of that? No, they decided, no, we dealt with it. It was all right. We managed to get through that situation. We like him being a werewolf. That's cool. Second time it happens, like, they're still not going to do it. Third time comes around, still not going to. Fourth time, party wipe. Okay, now they're pissed. Okay, good. Nice. You made the wrong decision, people. So, yes, I felt like that was a more interesting way to like have a dice roll in there to see if the player can actually control their character as a werewolf or a lycanthrope, and then watch it all unwind as the characters in the party made the wrong decision. It's like...
I like that. Yeah, like, and the great part about my adventuring party, my players, is if I told them to roll, say, a d6, say there's 3 players, you decide who you're attacking. It's up to you. My party would actually do it, and they would role play, and all of them would have fun. They're pretty relaxed like that, so it would actually work out really well, I think, in our group to let them attack each other. Yeah, go ahead.
When you were talking about the remove curse as a ritual, the first thing that came to mind for me was like, there's another good use for a magic circle. Yeah, it might not be in a fight, but set up a trap, lure this werewolf into a magic circle, contain them, and then you can begin this ritual cast.
I love that. Love it.
And
I think too, creating the tension, increasing like throughout it, like, oh, you only have so much time to either get the cure, like you were saying, if it's a player character, or even to end a cure on even these monsters. Maybe it's at that one point. Someone had mentioned that earlier. I really liked that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could even, depending on how long you wanted to keep that magic circle around, maybe the night goes on and then they're back to human, and you have this, like, you're able to actually talk to them. And maybe this ritual takes days, so you get like a little bit of the beast, a little bit of the person.
Yes. I love that.